Gentlemen, have you ever wondered why a woman's beauty can manipulate us so powerfully? Why a seemingly simple glance or smile is enough to shatter reason, transforming intelligent men into naive fools, chasing a captivating illusion? Schopenhauer would certainly smile sardonically at anyone who believes love is pure, detached from the sway of instinct. According to him, that allure isn't poetry or carefree romance. It's a cold, calculated mechanism, hardwired by the will to live, to perpetuate the species. A cunning and cruel trap of nature. Schopenhauer warned, what has the power to enchant you must be identified and understood, or it will mercilessly destroy you. Socrates once recognized this, but Schopenhauer delved deeper. A woman's allure is like the beautiful sharp blade of an enemy. It shimmers, promising joy and happiness, but its true purpose is to steal your reason, turning you into a slave to biological instinct. Modern men often refuse to accept this harsh truth. We prefer to live in pleasant illusions of perfect love, of an ideal other half. But Schopenhauer exposes the brutal reality. If you're merely captivated by the surface and fail to understand the deeper nature beneath, you're no different from a soldier mesmerized by the glint of an opponent's sword. You'll lose your defenses, become vulnerable, and ultimately be destroyed by the very thing you crave. That's a failure you must take responsibility for. It's due to your own blindness. Schopenhauer doesn't offer us gentle answers. Instead, he challenges us with harsh questions, forcing us to confront the bitter truths we constantly try to avoid. Why Schopenhauer would ask, do women often choose to act mysteriously, calculatingly, instead of showing clear sincerity? Why are her emotions so often intertwined with an elusive purpose, like an invisible conspiracy we can't define? And why, even in silence, can she convey more than 1,000 words, pushing us into a labyrinth of endless speculation? But these aren't questions to seek answers from women. They are questions directed at our own inner selves, meant to help us clearly identify the blind nature of the will to live that dominates each of us. Schopenhauer emphasized that men often lose themselves when chasing emotions they never truly understand. They blindly believe that by simply gaining a woman's affection or recognition, happiness will naturally follow. But the real tragedy isn't in the woman's nature, but in the man's blindness and lack of self-awareness. Men fail not because women are malicious or deceitful, but because they dare not look directly at their own deep-seated motives, unwilling to question the desires that silently lead them. Instead of constantly trying to read women, we need to spend time reading our own souls. Schopenhauer argued that only by understanding the true nature of the desires stirring within us can we escape the kneeling existence before illusion. Lack of self-awareness is the heaviest chain, and only by breaking it can you truly stand tall. Schopenhauer clearly stated a harsh truth. A man's life must be thoroughly examined, especially his deepest desires for women. We always think we are in control, that reason guides every decision. But the painful truth is that many men are still governed by hidden instincts, desires they've never dared to confront. This very blindness is the most dangerous. Do you have the courage to look directly into your own abyss? Are you strong enough to admit the weaknesses, the hidden cravings that silently control you whenever you face a woman? Schopenhauer stressed that a woman isn't the one who destroys you. She doesn't cause your downfall. The real destroyer is your own internal weakness and lack of self-awareness. A woman simply acts according to nature, following the natural law of the will to live. She doesn't operate based on malice or cunning. In fact, she is a harsh mirror that nature sets up to test you. When you reveal your weaknesses, she will exploit them. Not because she wants to harm you, but because her survival instinct tells her to. Like a flowing river, eroding stone, she doesn't hate you. She simply follows her own natural course. The real tragedy lies in men constantly blaming women whenever things fall apart. They fail to realize the root cause is their own lack of self-mastery. They are too preoccupied with seeking a woman's acceptance, forgetting that true strength lies in the ability to control and understand oneself. If you don't master your desires, they will master you through the very woman you crave most. Schopenhauer confronted what is called love with the cold, sharp gaze of a philosopher, seeing it not as a noble transcendence, but merely as an uncontrollable madness when devoid of reason's guidance. For him, love isn't something ethereal or pure. It's simply the most intense manifestation of the will to live, a blind primal force existing to ensure reproduction and the continuation of the species. When you let love lead without reason at the helm, you are truly plunging into a state of frenzy, an intoxication that makes you lose direction and judgment. Your soul, dragged by lust, becomes a pathetic creature, endlessly circling in despair, haunted by the insatiable source of its craving. Men fail when they sacrifice their reason and dignity to chase a woman's approval. How many have abandoned core values, important missions, just to gain a soft gaze, a fleeting smile, or a brief affectionate gesture? Schopenhauer asserted this isn't love, but a form of delusive addiction, a fascination that prevents them from ever seeing the truth behind it. A woman operating on natural instinct selects strength, not weakness or sentimental emotion. She doesn't seek a man desperate for her approval, but a partner strong enough to ensure her survival and that of her offspring. This is a cleverly evolved survival instinct. Therefore, when men expose their weaknesses, when they bargain their soul for fleeting affection, they not only lose a woman's respect, but also lose themselves. Schopenhauer warned, "Your soul must always belong to you, self-sufficient and firm, never to be sold for temporary affection." That is what true, meaningful existence is. Schopenhauer looked directly at the deepest tragedy of men. Self-destruction when instinct and desire lead. When lust, emotional craving, or social needs spiral out of control, a man is no longer the master of his own life. He loses his way, becomes passive, and ultimately loses the ability to determine his own destiny. He willingly kneels before a woman, unaware of the true nature or consequences of his actions. Such men are not uncommon. They are like wandering ghosts, living dependent on a woman's validation, ready to sacrifice all their principles and self-worth just to maintain a superficial relationship. Schopenhauer warned that unless they awaken, every man is at risk of becoming one of them. But a woman, according to Schopenhauer, isn't the source of this tragedy. She isn't evil, but simply a harsh natural test, a true reflection of the law of survival. She tests a man's inner strength, not out of malice, but from her primal instinct. A woman isn't a fixed anchor, but like the tide, a constantly changing, fluctuating force. To survive and remain steadfast against this challenge, a man must be the mast. Firm, strong, always unwavering despite the storms. A man's true strength isn't in his ability to control women, but in his self-mastery. When you allow emotions, desires, or fears to dominate you, hand over your power to her, and she instinctively will use this power naturally. You were not born to revolve around anyone. You were born to master yourself, to stand firm against all the fluctuating currents of life. The modern world, from Schopenhauer's perspective, is trapped in a tragedy. Men blindly idolize women without understanding the deeper nature behind this act. They turn women into symbols of happiness, saviors seeing her as the ultimate purpose of life. But what is the brutal truth? Schopenhauer would not hesitate to expose this. A woman is not here to complete you, nor is she a miraculous piece to mend the gaps in your soul. On the contrary, she is a harsh test, a trial that the will to live sets to examine your strength and self-mastery against the brutal demands of reality. The greatest tragedy for men is that they equate a woman's approval with self-worth. They believe that if loved and admired by a woman, they will find meaning in life. But Schopenhauer warned that this is merely a cunning trap of the will. It makes men think their worth depends on external validation. Men become weak when they place their identity and virtue in the hands of others, especially the woman they crave. When men chase this approval, they willingly sell their sovereignty, losing their soul in unconscious dependence. A woman with keen survival instincts will quickly spot this weakness. She will clearly see your lack of self-mastery, and instinctively, she cannot respect such a man. Schopenhauer wasn't interested in romantic illusions. He was only interested in the cold reality. Only by abandoning these illusions can you truly stand on your own feet. If you believe that clinging or dependence will keep a woman, Schopenhauer would warn that this is a dangerously harmful illusion. She will not stay when she feels you are steeped in neediness and despair. The deepest instinct of a woman, dominated by the will to live, does not seek weakness, but always seeks strength and stability. What a woman truly craves is not rigid control, but the steadfastness, certainty, and ability of a man to master his own life. When you display weakness and dependence, you inadvertently send the message that you are not a complete individual, but merely an incomplete being, begging for salvation from outside. Instinctively, this is utterly unattractive. Schopenhauer pointed out a harsh truth. Men either master themselves, or they will be completely controlled by their own internal desires. There is no third option. If you cannot control your desires for a woman's approval or affection, you will become a slave to that very desire. You will endlessly pursue something you can never grasp, because what you truly need is not within her, but within yourself. Dependence is a chain transforming you into a puppet of the will to live, a primal force constantly demanding satisfaction. When you don't master yourself, a woman will clearly sense this. Her survival instinct will warn her that you are not a reliable support. Although she might stay for convenience or habit, deep down she won't respect you. Ultimately, your lack of self-mastery will be the fatal flaw that drives her away. Schopenhauer advised you to abandon the idea that she will save you. Your true strength must come from your ability to master your desires from internal independence. Only then can you be truly attractive and keep a woman by your side. A man's true manhood, according to Schopenhauer, isn't about controlling or imposing his will on women, but about his ability to stand firm, undisturbed by her emotional fluctuations and behaviors. In the modern world, where romantic illusions are constantly glorified, this harsh truth is often hidden. When you allow a woman's erratic moods, sharp words, or unpredictable actions to control your temper and inner peace, you degrade yourself into a weakling, no different from a puppet pulled by invisible strings. She doesn't respect coercive strength or imposition. What she truly values is the clarity and steadfastness of a man who knows who he is, has his own stance, and doesn't lose his self-mastery amidst external challenges. A woman's affection and admiration aren't the ultimate reward you should seek, but just another illusion of the will to live, a trap leading you into dependence. The true reward Schopenhauer emphasized lies in internal self-mastery, the control of desires and emotions, and the ability to maintain stability despite external fluctuations. Schopenhauer likened feminine nature to the wind, ever-changing, wild, uncontrollable, and ungraspable. You shouldn't become a dry leaf aimlessly blown by that wind. Instead, be the sturdy mast, not opposing the wind's shifts, but knowing how to adjust your sails accordingly. This metaphor highlights the wisdom in facing primal forces. You don't need to control the uncontrollable. Instead, focus on mastering your own reactions, adapting flexibly without ever losing direction. That is true strength, the foundation for peace amidst a chaotic world. Schopenhauer set a stern command for men: stand absolutely still, unwavering before anything external. This isn't indifference or coldness, but an inviolable internal steadfastness. If your life depends on a woman's approval on her gaze or praise, you are putting yourself in a vulnerable position. According to Schopenhauer, a woman's primal instinct, controlled by the will to live, will quickly recognize and challenge that weakness. She will constantly test, withdraw affection, or even leave to see if you are strong enough to stand firm. This isn't cruelty or malice, but nature's harsh selection instinct. Every time you waver or kneel, she will gradually lose faith and respect for you. Schopenhauer completely rejected the romantic notion that love can exist if you have to betray yourself. According to him, if you sacrifice your dignity principles or life purpose just to gain affection, that's not love, but dependence, spiritual slavery. Self-betrayal will weaken you to your core, turning you into a faint shadow, losing the ability to truly connect with others. A man who seeks warmth from a woman to feel whole has no fire of his own. A man who bends his will to preserve affection will eventually break. At that point, she won't pick up the pieces. Not out of callousness, but because her nature seeks firmness and steadfastness. Schopenhauer's harsh lesson is that you must build a strong, self-sufficient core completely independent of external fluctuations. Only when you don't need validation from anyone can you truly stand firm and achieve true love in this challenging world. Schopenhauer declared a brutal yet liberating truth: the strongest man is not the richest, the most handsome, or the most eloquent, but the one who can walk away from any relationship and still maintain his complete integrity. If she realizes you can't leave, that your soul depends on her, then you've turned yourself into a flickering candle instead of a strong flame. The will to live's instinct will immediately recognize that weakness and cast you aside, because you've become a dependent entity, an unreliable individual to rely on. Schopenhauer didn't fight women. He simply warned men about self-mastery. Women are not the enemy. She is a true mirror, a harsh test that nature sets to examine your steadfastness. When she is silent, when she is cold, or threatens to leave, she is testing whether you have enough inner strength. Every time you fall, every time you beg for approval, you lose her trust, not because she is malicious, but because you have shown her that you build your inner worth on weak foundations. A real man does not sell his soul for affection. Suffering is not punishment, but an invitation to rise to become steadfast, self-reliant, and unshakable. True strength is not about dominance, but about maintaining calm amidst all external challenges. Schopenhauer reminded us, be yourself, firm and clear, without needing validation from others. Only then will you be truly attractive and find love not based on dependence, but on the strength of freedom and inner clarity.